Hello, and welcome to Off the Field and Screens, the Detroit Way, a Detroit sports podcast. I'm your host, Chad Marriott, and this week I'd like to let everyone take a moment to pause the app and scream at the top of their lungs following a rough weekend in Detroit sports. And if you are also a Michigan Wolverines fan, it was even rougher because the Lions, the Tigers, and the Wolverines all lost in a 24-hour span. So that was unpleasant, so take your time, have a good scream, get that out, and let's get down to what was going on. So it would be easy, I think, to try and blame Jared Goff. We're a very quarterback-centric, focused. I mean, that's just the way it is now in sports media, fandom, etc. Oh, we won because the quarterback was good. We lost because the quarterback was bad. Goff had a relatively high completion percentage. 31 for 39. He had one interception, but he was sacked 4 times. I don't want to sit here and blame Goff when the big problem was the game was lost in the trenches. The offensive and defensive line, I don't think there's any way to sugarcoat it. They were bad. They were really, really, really bad. Goff didn't have a lot of time in the pocket, and the criticism of Goff is that he is who he is. He's not going to be one of these quarterbacks that can adjust in the pocket and slide to the left, slide to the right, extend plays, make things happen with a big arm. It's not who he is. He needs that pocket. He needs to be able to be settled and use his high football IQ to make those plays. If he has to improvise, if he has to scramble, it's going to be a long, long, long season for the Lions. The loss of Frank Ragnow and Kevin Zeitler, it was widely overlooked. People mentioned it, and the conversation always went, the Lions are really high on Christian Mahogany and Tate Rutledge, and I still believe that those guys could turn out to be excellent offensive linemen, but first-year starters, second-year player and a rookie, they looked like it. They looked like it. And I think it will improve as the year goes on, but the next man up mentality in week 1, you could see this steep drop off. And Graham Glasgow, love the guy. That first year he came back to the Lions and was that utility, 6 linemen being able to slide all over the place. He played really well. Struggled last year, and if you just hop on Twitter and look at the game analysis, he did not have a good game on Sunday. That's a huge step down from Frank Ragnow. I mean, I don't know if you call him and just offer him all the money in the world. It's a little early. 1 week is early to give up on the current arrangement. But, yeah, the growing pains were a lot steeper than anyone had led fans to believe in that week 1 loss to Green Bay. 27-13 is the final score. And then the other half of it was the defensive line. The article that I posted on Off the Field and Screen had 8 pressures, but it was updated this morning to 6. They only had 6 pressures on Jordan Love. Hutchinson struggled. I think he's going to be okay, but the expectation that he was going to come in all-world, 20 sack pace right off the gate after that big injury, being out all that time, missing all that time, I don't know what we were all thinking, but obviously there's going to be an adjustment period. Maybe it's just 1 week. Who knows? Feels like it could be more than that. He didn't look as explosive in this first week. And then the big bugaboo that everybody, media fans, everybody was the defensive line adding another pass rusher, which they didn't. They said we're good with what we have. They let Zadarius Smith go. They re-signed Marcus Davenport. And I think a week 1 overreaction, something to maybe feel some long-term panic about. That might be the one that's not an overreaction. Because the offensive line, that's the first game they ever started with that arrangement. That's going to get better. They're going to have to figure out, offensive coordinator is going to have to figure out new ways to attack without offensive line dominance, which Goff needs to be an elite quarterback. But the defensive line, I don't see where they're going to get the internal improvement. This was a huge problem last year and a problem the year before. And they've said, we've got the guys, we have the internal, the development's coming. And aside from one half season from James Houston, they've really, really not had another pass rusher alongside Aiden Hutchinson, who I think with his recovery, it might have been wise to add another elite pass rusher or good, better pass rusher, an improvement on Davenport. I'm not saying that they needed to trade all the first-round picks in the world or a lot of the young talent, etc., etc. I'm not saying they need to sell the farm, but they needed to go out and get somebody to help stem the tide. Because if that's the type of pass rush that they're going to have all year, this isn't just not only not a playoff team, this is a bottom of the league team. Because NFL quarterbacks are too talented to have all that time in the pocket. Everybody. You will make rookies, career third stringers look like Pro Bowlers if you give them that much time. Let alone in a division where you have Jordan Love, who had kudos to the Packers. Love had not been good against the Lions. I talked about this last week. His career against the Lions had not been great, but this year they went out and got him some weapons. And I don't want to give him too much credit because he's just playing pitch and catch out there. But that's his best game against the Lions. And then they have Caleb Williams and J.J. McCarthy in this division. That's 6 games. You give that much time to Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts. It doesn't matter. This schedule, they have good competition, and with no pass rush, these guys are going to torch them. They have to get pressure on the quarterback. They have to get in the backfield. They cannot have 6 pressures, or they won't win any games. Don't know what to tell you. I think it's too soon to be using the same old Lions moniker. I think you saw like a rush of, and I hate to use this term in such a blasé way, but you had the Lions fans with like PTSD yesterday. It was like, It was because I wrote an article a few years ago, the agony of being a Lions fan, where it always felt like they would set you up, like Lucy holding the football for Charlie Brown and pull it out from under you right as you were soon getting ready to kick. And this would be the ultimate Lucy pulling the football. The 15-2, the first playoff win in 32 years the year before that. The best offense in the NFL, this young core, locking them all up, and it's Dan Campbell, bite the kneecaps off. This would be the ultimate Lucy pulling the football. One, to be honest, I don't think I could recover from. I think it would, as a fan, it would shatter my spine. Oh, man. I do think for a week one thing, we need to temper it. But I think the coaching changes is probably the thing that's being the most overblown. There is going to be a transition with that. I think they're going in that respect. That's not the problem. I think if Ben Johnson was still here, you'd still have problems with two first-year offensive linemen and replacing Frank Ragnow with Graham Glasgow. You'd still have that problem. And not to rip on Aaron Glenn, but that was the problem his team always had, was the lack of pass rush. His defense struggled with pass rush and stuck in man and got picked apart. It didn't look good, though. He didn't have the lack of discipline in the secondary. They weren't great, but yesterday some of the missed assignments and confusion, and with the lack of pass rush, they were dropping Hutchinson into coverage instead of having him pass rush. I don't know what that was about. Because, that's not going to help. Jordan Love just sitting back there picking him apart. It looked awful. I mean, there's really not much else to say. We could go on and on and on and on and on and on and on about it, but the play in the trenches has to get better. If it doesn't, it's going to be a very long year. And going into next week against Chicago, I don't know what that's going to look like, because I haven't watched. Obviously, at the time of recording, the Bears and Vikings haven't played the Monday Night Football game. I'm recording Monday morning. But if it doesn't matter. If they have that type of pass rush against them, they'll get clobbered. Even if they're not good, even if Chicago isn't good this year, they will crush Detroit if they can't get a pass rush. Which is even more of a problem because Caleb Williams can move around a little bit. But what they're going to need to do is they're going to need to jump back in. Dan Campbell said we don't. No need to worry. The stuff is fixable. We're going to look at the tape, get back after it. What really, they need to go back to that kneecap ideology. To quote him from a few years ago, we're going to kick you in the teeth, and when you punch us back, we're going to smile at you. When you knock us down, we're going to get up, and on the way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off, and we're going to stand up, and it's going to take 2 more shots to knock us down. And on the way up, we're going to take your other kneecap, and we're going to get up, and it's going to take 3 shots to get us down. And when we do, we're going to take another hunk out of you. And the reason I read that quote is that's the mentality. They're going to have that amount of fight this year. They're no longer, with the changes, they're not top dog. They're not superior anymore. They need to go back to that underdog mentality. And they kind of played like, oh, this is our game. We have it in the bag yesterday on Sunday. Don't want to overreact. Week 1. That was awful. It was really ugly. But we got to see how they bounce back in week 2, and hopefully they find some ways to make some adjustments, particularly offensive, defensive line. They just got owned. And for all the talk, all the emphasis on the passing game now, the game is still won there. Because if you can get a good pass rush, or you can dominate the running game, you're going to win a lot of football games. Okay, so let's turn to another frustrating weekend from the Tigers. And I don't want to dog on anybody on offense. Some of the mental errors weren't great in the field. But they're scoring enough runs. I mean, they in this last 13 games, they've gone 4-9. They're averaging 4.8 runs per game. I think I said last week the league average is around 4.2, 4.3. So they're scoring enough, and they're getting enough production from the Riley Greens, the Spencer Torkelsons, even Glaber Torres has picked it up in this last series. Kerry Carpenter, etc., etc. They're getting enough offense. They allowed, in that stretch, 5.8 runs per game. And if we want to break it down, the bullpen did have one or two not so great days, but that's not a trend. Overall, the trend is the bullpen's playing pretty well. It was good to see Holton pitch so well. Troy Melton was due for a not so great outing. Lack of control on the walks. The walks are killer. Canely, it looked like it was trending up, but no. With that outing. So, want to take a look at starting pitching in that 13-game stretch. There were 3 Skubal starts. They went 2-1. He had 2 shutouts, and then he had that 6 2/3 start in Sacramento, where he technically only gave up 1 earned run because of some errors. Flaherty has had 3 starts. I think one of those was okay, but in the 3 starts, he's pitched 15 innings, given up 13 earned runs for a 7.8 ERA. That signing, I mean, this has been talked to death, but it's turned out to be really bad. And I don't think anybody saw that coming. It was a very highly praised return. Everybody was very excited. It's just not worked out. Casey Mize has had 2 starts in that stretch for 8.1 innings, 6 runs, 6.48 ERA. Charlie Morton had 3 starts, 11.2 innings, 14 runs for a 10.8 ERA. Paddock had 1 start and 2 outings, 5 innings, 9 runs, 16.2 ERA. And Sawyer Gibson-Long had 1 start for 4 innings, 6 runs. And that's a lot of stats, like reading off the stats. Let's give some context. That's awful. Outside of Skubal, the starting pitching has been horrendous, and it's not getting better. And I have some empathy for the organization, because going into the year, this was seen as a strength, the starting pitching, the depth. You had Reese Olson and Jackson Jobe, 2 starters, go down. Reese Olson has been particularly awful loss. I mean, Jackson Jobe, you're kind of hoping his rookie year, expecting by this point in the season he'd probably really be coming into his own. You signed Alex Cobb in the offseason, and it looks like he's probably going to retire. He did everything he could. Wanted to pitch this year. Did everything he could. Just when the body isn't having it, it's the way it is. And they took a risk, knowing his injury history, the Tigers did, and it did not pay off. And then you have like Cater Montero, who had a pretty strong season last year. You're expecting that growth, and he did not have the growth. He kind of looks like he's regressed a little bit. Major league pitching, looks like the scouting has kind of picked up on him. His location's not been great. Of course, you have Matt Manning, which was a disappointing turn of events. And then Jose Urquidy, got that pronunciation this week, could be back to pitch some relief. Obviously not going to add another starter at this point. It looks like they're going to have to go to pitching chaos because they don't have the starting pitching depth. And at this point, you're really going to try another project from the minor leagues. They've done a lot of that this year, and it hasn't really worked out. The trick with that is it cost them last year. I mean, the Tigers made the playoffs, so exciting, good news, great. Rather be in the playoffs than miss it. But Bo Brisky, Jason Foley, and Sean Gunther were big parts of that from that August 1st on. And they're all injured. Brant Herter was a big part of it last year. He's injured. Hopefully they can get him back. But I think that's how they're going to have to do this. They're going to have to manufacture some rotation. Probably a lot of them, a lot more bullpen days, because the starters aren't getting it done. And the best hope you can have is Casey Mize and Jack Flaherty level off. Because I had some hope that maybe Charlie Morton could do that, but it's not looking good. And the Chris Paddock, Sawyer Gipson-Long, that's another one, Sawyer Gipson-Long. Coming back from the injury, I think the expectations maybe for coming off of surgery were a little high after missing a whole year. But it's been worse than, I personally sort of expected like maybe average, like high 3 ERA coming back, but it's not been great. So, there's not much else they can do other than switch to the pitching chaos. Hopefully Brant Herter can come back and play well. Maybe, yeah, I'm at a loss for the starting pitching. And it's tough, I think, mentally as a team, that these starting pitchers keep spotting the other team 2, 3, 4 runs early in these games. And then the Tigers' offense has been good, but I think when they get behind, especially as the late innings come up, they get away from the good approach, the take your pitches, don't swing at bad pitches, do damage on the ones you can. They switch to like, I gotta hit a home run and get us back in this thing. And that is a recipe for losing baseball. I wasn't sure if I was going to have time, but just a quick little, this is a Detroit podcast, but a quick little shout out to Michigan State football this weekend. Not a Spartans fan, but good on second-year coach Jonathan Smith for the overtime win against Boston College. Michigan State 2-0. Kind of, as a Michigan fan, a little nervous based on how they played and how Michigan's been playing. Michigan, you could just look at the same thing for the Lions discussion. The offensive and defensive line were not great. The Lions were better coached, though. The Michigan Wolverines, Sharon Moore, I was never a big fan of the hire. I feel like he got a lot of credit for being on the staff of a national championship winning team. I don't think he was ready for prime time as a head coach at a premier program. They have Bryce Underwood, who's got just immense arm talent. He can run, and they're just sticking to up the middle and these very predictable screen passes. And they need to try and find a way to open it up, get them on the move, do something. And the play action, they're trying this play action, and the offensive line could not keep Oklahoma out of the backfield. And it felt like the philosophy with Sharon Moore is play not to lose instead of playing to win. And that's always been the problem. He got lucky. When you get in a dogfight and you're ahead and you have a dominant defense and you have a dominant offensive line, you can play like that and win games. When you don't have that, when you have to... It's the coach's job to look at the team's weaknesses and try and create a game plan to minimize the weaknesses of the team and maximize the strengths. And what Sharon Moore has done is minimize the team's strengths and maximize their weaknesses by playing a game plan that they can't succeed with against a team with a superior offensive and defensive line. You could say, well, that's the philosophy. Well, you can bang your head against the wall and say it's the philosophy. Whatever. And then to end the show this week, a quick shout out to former Detroit Lion Matthew Stafford for passing the 60,000 career yards mark. Caught the end of that game after the depressing Lions game, and saw him make a big play rolling out of the pocket, using his feet to make a play. And good for him. The Rams look, as long as they have Matthew Stafford, he can win them 8-9 games a year by himself. So the Rams will probably be in it. I don't know if they can. The situation there feels very similar to how it was when he was in Detroit, where I don't know if they have enough talent around him to succeed in the playoffs, but he could probably get them there. So good for him. That's awesome. He's very, very talented. And that's about it. Very downer week. We'll see how things go in the upcoming week. The Tigers have a big series against the Yankees, and the Lions have to play the Chicago Bears. So we'll see. All right. Thank you. See you next time. This has been the Detroit Way.